Brilliant.
Good evening,
Right.
everybody. Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello. Right. Nice and busy. We'll leave it for a couple more minutes just to let the last few people join, and then we'll get going.
Lots of familiar names here joining. Nice to see you all. Thank you for joining us this evening. Far nicer to be sitting on a Zoom call than out in the horrible wintry weather at the moment. All right, we've got more people coming in.
Brilliant. We'll give it one more minute, and then we'll set off ready to go. To
Hello,
the nice,
everyone.
to the nice sunny weather of Baja, California.
It'll be a nice transportation away from where we are at the moment. Fantastic. Well, I think it would be good to start, George.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sarah. So, thank you so much for joining us this evening, everyone, for a nice little bonus feature of our online roadshow this winter. My name is George Nicholson, and I am an operations manager and tour leader for Naturetrek. I look after a wide range of trips across the world with a focus on Europe and North America, and I look after the arrangements for many of our holidays to these regions, from birding breaks across Greece and Portugal to alpine flowers in the Swiss Alps, and then searching for the megafauna of North America in Alaska, Canada, and the United States. And then before starting at Naturetrek, I trained as a marine biologist at Swansea University, which is really what kick-started my love for wildlife, with cetaceans really becoming my core fascination. And this has taken me all over the world. And with Naturetrek, I've been lucky enough to enjoy spectacular marine life and whale watching from destinations including Norway and Canada, as well as Mexico and the Azores, just to name a few. And it's an absolute pleasure this evening to be joined by Sara Frost to discuss one of our favorite destinations, which is Baja, California, and the Sea of Cortez. A little bit about Sarah. So she works full time at Naturetrek HQ as our marketing manager, but she's also one of our expedition cruise leaders. Sarah's expertise lies in marine wildlife, and cetaceans have taken her from Canada's Pacific Northwest to the polar regions of Antarctica and Svalbard, as well as the rich coral reefs of the Maldives and Indonesia, and as well our whale watching holidays to the Azores and, of course, Baja, California. And then before Naturetrek, Sarah trained as a zoologist at Newcastle University and has spent time working in Canada as a wildlife rehabilitator, caring for black bears, coyotes, otters, and raccoons. And on her return to the UK, she moved to the Scottish Highlands, where she spent 3 years working at sea as a wildlife guide, finding minke whales, otters, dolphins, and eagles. She spent her summers here as well as a senior wildlife officer on the ship in the North Sea, collecting sightings data on whales and dolphins and delivering marine biology lectures to guests. Always keen to be involved with media as well, Sarah has presented both on live radio and TV and has had photos published in multiple wildlife and travel magazines, as well as working as a guide for various different film and TV crews for several natural history documentaries. And then just before I hand it over to Sarah, I just want to say, please remember to use the chat feature in here to ask some questions during the talk, and then we'll be sure to answer as many as we can at the end. And now, without further ado, over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, George. Thank you for that really warm introduction and welcome. Well, good evening, everybody. I think most of you know me now, and that was quite a comprehensive introduction that George has kindly just given me. So, as you know, I work in the Naturetrek head office as our marketing manager, but have got a background in marine biology. And I specialize in guiding our cruisers all around the world. So I guide our cruisers in Scotland, in the Azores, in the Maldives, in Indonesia, the Arctic, Antarctica, and Baja, California, where I'm going to be taking you to this evening. And the unique thing about our cruises is that they're private charters. So we have total control over the vessel. We fill it with like-minded wildlife enthusiasts, and we crew them with expert naturalist guides. More importantly, they depart at the right time of year, or equally importantly, they're departing at the right time of year as well for the wildlife. And furthermore, they're small boat charters because the image of the word cruise conjures up images of a huge liner of 2,000 people. Well, not on a Naturetrek trip. We typically take 15 to 25 people, depending on the size of the boat. Larger for the polar vessels. for the polar regions and polar vessels. So 100 for Antarctica and 50 for the Arctic. And for Baja, California, where we're going now, we take 25 passengers just on a lovely small boat. So let's head off over to Baja. So, where is Baja, California? Well, it is actually this peninsula here, which goes all the way down in the Gulf of California, and it belongs to Mexico. So, Baja, California has long been described as the Galapagos of Mexico. And we fly into San Diego and spend the day there. And then we spend a huge part of our trip actually sailing down this peninsula. And from the Pacific pounded shores of its western coastline round to the sheltered blue waters of the Sea of Cortez, this peninsula is one of the longest in the world at over 1,200 kilometers in length. And it's home to a diversity of wildlife that could easily rival Darwin's more famous islands over 1,600 kilometers to the south. So, our route takes us from San Diego and down into Mexico, down the peninsula, and into the Sea of Cortez around the peninsula. And we fly back from Cabo San Lucas on the southern part of the point there. So this is the route that we do in more detail, and our cruise offers a really comprehensive exploration of the peninsula and plenty of stop-offs to do birding on shore, as well as, of course, birding and watching wildlife from the boat. So the coast of Baja California offers arguably the best cetacean watching in the world. And this is partly because it includes both the Pacific coast on the peninsula, with its many sheltered bays, and also the Sea of Cortez on the east side. And this is a waterway with a deep underwater canyons and seamounts, which together usher up nutrients to the surface, which means it's a rich feeding area. So we get on board our boat and we spend a night in San Diego. But before we get on board our boat, we'll spend a night in San Diego and go birding for the day with the Audubon Society. Or folk can relax if they want to, but for folk that join the birding excursion, which is really worthwhile doing, there's lots to see just for a lovely day out in San Diego. We first go to a nearby lake called Lindo Lake. And here we can find black-crowned night herons, house finches, grackles, western bluebirds, Nuttall's woodpecker in the trees by the lakes, usually great egrets in the tops of the trees, and ground squirrels scurrying between their burrows, or sometimes they're just out basking in the sun on the grass. They're quite tame. And a highlight, certainly, when I was there, was seeing a fabulous male wood duck with a female on the lake, and its crisp plumage just looking really smart in the dazzling sunshine. Really a fabulous thing to see. And then we'll go up into the mountains and to a spot called Silverwood, which is an Audubon reserve. And this is to the north of the city. So here we can sit in the shade and have a picnic lunch and watch Anna's hummingbirds flitting around on the feeders and go for a short walk as well. And on our walk, we can see turkey vultures, Cooper's hawks, northern flickers, lots of nice things hopping about while we're having our lunch and nice photographic opportunities. And we'll also stop along the San Diego River estuary. So there are waders and herons, really quite abundant here. We might see semi-palmated plover, bufflehead, Hudsonian whimbrel. This was split a couple of years ago from the European whimbrel. Long-billed curlew and marbled godwit, amongst other things. And that evening we board the Searcher, our vessel, from the lovely Fisherman's Wharf harbour. And this is our boat, our home for the next couple of weeks, 11 nights. And she's certainly not a luxurious vessel, but she's very well suited to our needs and comfortable. So this is a little deck plan here. So you can see it's all quite cozy. Takes 25 passengers. They're small cabins, but you really don't spend any time in your cabin other to change and to sleep because all of the action is up on deck and that's where you want to be. And we start heading south and travel through the night where we wake up in Mexico. And the brown pelicans are common along the coastline. And they can be quite confident. You'll see them flying in rows. But actually, one morning we came out onto deck to see this youngster had just landed on board, this juvenile. And it just stayed with us for the whole afternoon, just watching us as we went about our busy day watching wildlife until it decided to take flight eventually. Now, two birds we'll be really keen to see. are the two species of albatross. There's black-footed, which is what I've pictured here, and there's very few species of albatross that are dark all over and light around the bill as this one is. So, and also there's the Laysan albatross. Now, the Laysan albatross is just wonderful. I think they're really gorgeous birds. Both of these species are northern species of albatross, and they breed in Hawaii, including the island of Laysan, which is where the first specimen was described. But they range quite widely across the North Pacific. And in fact, the oldest known wild bird is a Laysan albatross. It was an adult female which was ringed on Midway Island, which is in Hawaii, in 1956, and they don't breed until they're about 5 years old. So she must have hatched in 1951 or earlier, and was still rearing a chick as recently as 2021 when she was at least 70. So quite astonishing, really. And we'll see some familiar birds such as sooty shearwaters, but also some unfamiliar birds such as the Cassin's auklet, which is pictured here. Now, these birds nest in underground burrows on islands, and the pair will take it in turns to incubate, changing shifts in the dead of the night to avoid predators, because gulls would have them otherwise. And they're unique amongst Northern Hemisphere seabirds in that they sometimes have a second brood, all of the seabirds being strictly single brooded. And this species was named after John Cassin, who was an American ornithologist who described 198 species of bird in his time. He lived from 1813 to 1869. Hermann's gull as well. This is one in breeding plumage, and their whole bodies are this gorgeous smoky grey colour with the contrasting pure white head and the lipstick red bill. I think they're really stunning gulls. And as we continue south down the peninsula, we should start to see our first whales. This was a breaching humpback that came up the front of our boat really quite quickly and surprised us, which was lovely to see. And other birds we'd hope to see is lots of phalaropes. It's all go. So lots of phalaropes around the boat as well. And it's actually been found that from tracking that red-necked phalaropes that breed in Shetland cut across America and winter on the Pacific. So there could well be Shetland birds amongst these here. We often see red-necked, but can see grey phalaropes as well. So we see both of them. They're always in the winter plumage. And this is San Benito. So this is the first spot that we'll stop off to explore and have a walk. So it's lovely warm weather. It's a great place to visit in February or March, get away from the British winter. We come here to stretch our legs, but also because we like to meet the local residents. So this is a colony of northern elephant seals that live here that we stop off to go and see. And this is a different species from those down on the Falklands or South Georgia. They're southern elephant seals. And there's a little fishing village here where we've stopped off at, and it's only operational during the abalone season. So the seals just take over out of season and sleep in the streets. Now, the males look particularly unattractive, but the females actually do look quite sweet. And they can be quite endearing and quite inquisitive. So always brings a smile to people's faces to be having the privilege of going to these seal colonies. And that we also have the opportunity to see the San Benito sparrow. Now, this has recently been split from the savanna sparrow, so it's now a unique species which only occurs on San Benito's Island. Fortunately, it's quite common, so it's not too difficult to see hopping around. Wandering tattler as well. Now, these birds breed in Alaska, but they winter over rocky shores all over the coast of America and Mexico too. And they're quite unusual in that the whole bird is grey, including the rump and tail, so they don't have wing bars or anything like that. Lots of osprey, so you see several pairs of them on their nests, and we can see them hunting around and flying overhead, and they can fly astonishingly close to you. They don't seem to have much of a fear of humans. They're very rarely visited because it's such a remote spot where we're going, but they don't seem to have any fear from guests coming on the boat. So it's really fantastic for photography opportunities to see these birds as they're flying past, going to and from their nest with food. And Guadalupe fur seals. Now, there are only two places on the planet where these fur seals breed. There's Guadalupe Island, which is about 200 miles off the coast of the peninsula, and San Benito's Island, where we're visiting. And they were hunted to near extinction, and only a handful of them survived. But strict protection has meant that they've been able to build up reasonable numbers again, thank goodness. Waders too, so the black turnstone. There are only two species of turnstone on the planet. There's the ruddy turnstone, aka just what you call a turnstone, which breeds right around the Arctic and it winters on coasts widely, including Britain. Now, the black turnstone is much more restricted and it breeds only near the coast in Alaska. And when it's not breeding, it's found on rocky shores right down the Pacific coast and as far as Baja, which is great. So we've got an opportunity to see them. And they can be quite aggressive around their nests and they'll attack birds that are much larger than they are, like skuas or gulls. And in the summer, their plumage is blacker, with some white patches around the face. And back out on the water after a land visit, we continue sailing south down the peninsula looking for cetaceans. And this is quite a common sight for me as a tour leader. People peering down the front of the boat looking at whatever we've found. They're not being sick. I had someone ask me this and think, a common sight as a tour leader, are they all throwing up? No, no, they're just looking at some wonderful things that we have on the bow because we had found something quite special. We got dolphins. And these are Pacific white-sided dolphins, and they bash across the waves and come over to bow ride on the boat. Wonderful, really attractive dolphin. And we can also get super pods of common dolphins, which can be in the numbers of 5,000, which is what I saw when I was out in Baja last year. And it was absolutely phenomenal. The water just boiling with these dolphins. And for decades, we've had two species of common dolphin, a short-beaked, which seems to be a more oceanic species in deeper water. This is the dolphin that we get in Europe and around the UK, and the long-beaked common dolphin found in tropical coastal waters, which has never been recorded in Europe. However, they've now been classed as the same species, just different races living within different ranges. So we've got long-beaked here. Bottlenose dolphins too, they might bow ride. Wonderful photo opportunities. They're quite boisterous. They love to swim over to boats, to play and to show off. They're a very crowd-pleasing dolphin and the one that people are most familiar with due to their history of being in dolphinariums and featuring in Flipper. And when we were going down this peninsula a couple of years ago, we had a blow and I shouted a whale and we were quite excited. So we were able to go over to it and we had a fin whale come alongside the boat. Now, this is the second largest whale in the world after the blue whale. And fin whales are unusual in that they have an asymmetrical face. So the jaw on their lower right-hand side is white, whereas the rest of it and the rest of their upper body and the rest of their jaw on the left-hand side is this gunmetal grey colour. So to separate it from other superficially similar whales, so the sei whale, a Brooder's whale, this is what you can look for. And you might think, well, how on earth am I supposed to see the lower right-hand jaw of a whale to see the colour of it? Well, when you're in a small boat, you can go really quite close and have a look without disturbing the animals. And fin whales can be really quite quick. They're known as the greyhounds of the sea, so they can travel at speeds of 50 kilometers per hour or so. And seeing this was really one of my highlights on the trip because we came across it just on the second day. And after this enormous blow that it gave alongside us, we all had to go and wipe our glasses because we got covered in whale snot, which is a wonderful experience, an occupational hazard, I'll say. But then after 3 days of traveling, we arrive into San Ignacio Lagoon, and this is what most people have come for. So, San Ignacio Lagoon is a coastal lagoon with access to the Pacific Ocean, and there are grey whales here in their hundreds. Now, there are two reasons that they're here. One, to mate, and the second is to have their calves. So if I just showed this little diagram here, this explains the behavior and migratory patterns of grey whales. So almost all of the world's grey whales travel down the Pacific coast of the US and they spend their winter in these lagoons where they mate and they give birth. So the males come to mate and the females come to give birth. And then once they're ready to mate again, they'll come here and mate. And then they go all the way back up to Alaska to feed in the north in the cold waters there before coming back down again. The babies don't have much, if any, blubber on them at all. So if they were born up in the cold waters, they would die. They wouldn't be able to stay warm, which is why the mothers need to migrate down here for them. So the females aren't typically feeding down here. The feeding and productive areas are up in the north. Now, the females won't typically mate if they're already bearing a calf, but they'll have one calf every 2 to 3 years. So this is a 3,000-mile journey from their feeding grounds in Alaska down to San Ignacio Lagoon. And when they're in the lagoon, they quite like to approach boats. And the whales here have certainly got different personalities. Some come over to the boats, some don't. And we go out to find the friendly ones, and most of them are. So only a small portion, I think it's about 30% of the lagoon is open to these pangas, these boats, for boats to come into to see the grey whales. So they've got about 70%, which is off limits, and the whales have to themselves. So if they don't want to be in the water where there are near boats, then it's very easy for them just to go away and have peace and quiet for them. So some come and say a quick hello. Others, you can get real interaction with them, and it feels quite odd to be interacting with a whale in this way. And you can actually go over and stroke them and give them a little scratch. And it seems to go against everything that you prepare for as a zoologist, that you don't want to change an animal's behavior and you want to be very professional and not anthropomorphic about it. But quite simply, if you don't give this whale a little scratch, it will just go to a boat that will. So because they quite like it. They like the attention, and the young ones particularly can be quite curious. So, I mean, you just look at this next picture and tell me that this whale isn't enjoying itself. I mean, it's rolling on its side like a little puppy, and it's got its eye mostly closed. It's just loving the attention and having its jaw tickled and its head scratched. And I'll reiterate, not all of the whales want to do this. They might just come and say a quick hello, stick their head out of the water, and we never know what we're going to get. And so we shouldn't. This is wildlife. This is a privilege for us to be in their world and interacting with them on their terms. And whatever they want to do, we'll just take it and be really grateful that we're having these wonderful, cherished moments with them. And these whales only started coming up to the boats in San Ignacio Lagoon in 1976, where there were whale researchers going out there. And the researchers assumed that they must be interfering with them, so they moved away. And the whales just kept following the boats and coming over to them out of curiosity and kept approaching them. Now, the whales were hunted in these waters to near extinction, and it only stopped 70 years ago. And they live for 50, 60, 70 years. So we've got the children of those who were attacked by whalers, and even some that may have been attacked. And they've forgiven us. They're coming over to us and approaching us, quite happy for us to interact with them, which is really quite astonishing. And this one here just eyeballed me, and it was amazing being eyeballed, as it were, by a grey whale. And note the white patches on its skin. These are from barnacles, and a lot of barnacles and sea lice. And this photograph here, I just took on my iPhone, believe it or not. So you can have all this expensive photography equipment. Because the whales are so close, a zoom lens isn't going to be any use. So I just took this on my phone. You can just see the mother in the background. She's here, just watching, and she's quite big. She's going all the way along here. And this is the calf that was just really curious and sticking its head up out of the water. Absolutely wonderful. And this next photo is one of my favorites. This is actually some local tourists, so not on the Naturetrek trip, but local tourists who had gone out and desperately trying to find a whale. And it's just quite funny. Who is watching who? You've got this grey whale spy hopping, and these tourists in this boat, no idea that they're being watched by this whale. They just kept spy hopping and watching them again and again and again. So you really have to wonder who is watching who, and it's nice to see whales doing things on their terms sometimes. This is some of my delighted guests when one of the whales came over to them to say hello. I'll just mute that video there, but this is a typical experience with the greys. So you see mum in the background, and then the youngster just rolling about, just wondering what is going on, enjoying a little bit of fuss. And they have a lot of parasites and a lot of sea lice on them, which I'll talk a little bit more about a few slides on. But we hypothesize, we wonder, are they enjoying feeling a sensation of being slightly exfoliated? Is that what they think it is? Is it like a little spa for them? I'm not sure, but just after I stopped filming this video, this baby grey whale came over to me and lifted its head up right to my face. And I did what any self-respecting zoologist would do. I gave it a huge kiss. And it was phenomenal. And this mother and calf just seemed so taken with us. You can see the shadow of mum in the background there. And it just kept spinning around and playing with us. Really wonderful to see. I just leaned in and put my camera in the water so you can just get eye to eye with these whales. And the mum came over to us as well and had a good belly rub and a good head rub. And you just never know where they're going to pop up. Sometimes because the water's quite murky with lots of plankton, they sometimes can sneak under the boat without you even realizing. You've got to keep your eyes peeled. So alongside the bay, after we've had these fantastic experiences with the grey whales, we'll spend 2 nights there in San Ignacio Lagoon, actually anchored. And before we leave, we'll make sure that we spend a morning going into these mangroves that are on the edge of the bay to do some birding because they are just full of herons, waders, reddish egret, tricolored heron, black-crowned night heron, yellow-crowned night heron, marbled godwit, long-billed curlews, lots of royal terns, plus Caspian and elegant terns. There's loads of different things to see. So I've got a few photos. We've got a willet here, short-billed doucher. It's worthwhile going through these waders so that you can see the different species that we've got. Marbled godwit there. And belted kingfishers. Now, mangroves are breeding grounds for fish. So if you get lots of fish, you're going to have lots of things that feed on fish. And the belted kingfisher is a giant in comparison with the diminutive European kingfisher, which weighs about 40 grams, whereas the belted kingfisher is nearly 4 times heavier at 150 grams. Reddish egret. Now, apparently, the reddish egret is North America's rarest heron. There are fewer than 2,000 breeding pairs in the US, and most of these are in Texas. But they also nest in Central America, the Caribbean, and Mexico. And they have a famously energetic feeding style. They'll dash about and fan its wings to reduce glare before stabbing their prey, which will be fish, amphibians, or crayfish. And the ones in Baja are a subspecies and darker than the birds elsewhere in the range. So we've got yellow-crowned night heron here, really lovely, attractive bird. Now, a species that birders are particularly keen to see, well, anyone's keen to see it, it's nice to see rare things, is the mangrove warbler. Now, this only inhabits tropical mangroves on the coasts of the Americas. It's totally resident in this habitat, it doesn't migrate, and at high tide, they usually remain hidden in the evergreen mangrove foliage. But at low tide, they can sometimes be seen on the roots and the mud. The trouble is, the mangroves are most easily accessed by boat when the tide is high, so it can be tricky to see, but it's fabulous when we do so. So we've got all eyes peeled when we're out going through these mangroves, hoping that we can find a mangrove warbler. And after 2 nights and 2 fabulous days in the lagoon, we need to leave to head south to warmer waters. During which time we should see lots of frigate birds. They're often fighting over fish. Can see red-billed tropic birds as well. These are about 1 meter from bill to tail, although just half of that length comprises the amazing elongated central tail feathers. Very elegant bird. And we also hope to see whale sharks. Now, we not only hope to see them, but we hope to actually be able to snorkel with them. And doing so is strictly regulated, and it's only done in conjunction with the local whale shark conservation charity, which work in the lagoon where the whale sharks come to. But if the population is doing well, then we're able to go into the lagoon where we can see them. And this is the largest fish in the world. So as long as the weather's calm enough and the whale sharks are there, it's typically young males that come to this little lagoon where they are, then we can go in the water with them. But it's very well regulated. The conservation organization insists that there need to be 8 or so whale sharks in the lagoon for a week, consistently for a week before they let any boats in. So they want to make sure that they're really calm and really settled, which is great that they do so. The wildlife is coming first. Which is good. And we can all get ready and hop into the water with them after being briefed by a conservation volunteer, and he or she will come in the water with us. And when I went in a couple of years ago, I hopped in last because I was taking the rear of the group. I was waiting for everyone to get in ahead of me. They can go ahead and go and see the shark, and I'll just take up the rear. But actually, the most astonishing thing happened to me when I hopped in last. I hopped in, the water was really murky. It was quite full of plankton. Everyone swam off. And as I was taking up the rear, I could just hear a high-pitched whistling sound. And I turned around, and this is what I saw. That was one of the most heart-stopping moments of my wildlife guiding career, I have to say. It was absolutely phenomenal. And it's these moments that you don't expect that just really take your breath away. Everyone had swum off, and in the background you could hear the boat noise whirring, but you could hear them whistling, which is them talking to one another. But also you might have heard sort of zip noises, which is their echolocating. And they were echolocating on me, just checking out what I was, really curious. And these are bottlenose dolphins. And you might notice they had a sort of dark cape on top of them. This is dark pigmentation on their skin to stop them from getting sunburned in the tropics. It was a heart pounding moment. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears during this moment. And it was just absolutely phenomenal. But then I managed to swim and catch up with the rest of the group, and here we had our wonderful whale shark. And they're so enormous, you just can't fit the whole animal into one frame. But their patterns, their beautiful patterns that they have down the side of them, are unique to the individual. So this is one of the common ways that scientists will build up an ID catalogue of these individuals. But they'll come to the surface, they like to warm up, and they can also feed lovely, thick, rich, planktony waters here. And you need to be reasonably fit to keep up with them because they're moving fairly quickly. And they're very gentle and docile creatures. And this is just a young one. They get up to 12 meters or so, and I would say this one is probably only 4 or 5 meters. And for those people who don't want to snorkel, you might still be able to see them from the small boat that the conservation organisation take us out on. So you can just lean over the side and see one cruising past. Absolutely phenomenal. So continuing south, we can also see sperm whales. Now, these sperm whales love areas where there are deep underwater canyons. They're deep divers and they feed on squid. And there's a group of males here which are taking a rest after a deep dive. So they're replenishing the oxygen stores in their blood before going back down again. And the sperm whale is the loudest animal on the planet. They make, I'll just see if this little video will play. Oh, no, it's not going to. Right. Just imagine a sperm whale swimming past the camera, but it's similar to this image here, but it's the loudest animal on the planet, and they have an enormous head, which is actually about the third of the size of their body, and it's filled with spermaceti oil, which There's debated what they might use it for. Maybe to do with their echolocation because they're doing a lot of echolocating down at depths, deep diving. But it may be to do with regulating buoyancy as well. If they can warm up the temperature of this oil, then it changes its viscosity in water and might be able to help them sink or surface. We're not totally sure, but they are just built for deep diving. They're natural submarines. They have little depressions in their sides for their paddle-shaped fins, which go flush to their body when they tuck them in. And their rib cages actually compress and almost collapse under pressure when they go to depths of their typical depth is about 2,000 meters, where they feed on giant squid. And they'll surface 40 minutes later, or an hour later, even an hour and a half for an adult male, totally unharmed. Whereas a human could never undergo such a feat. And they use echolocation to hunt. So they'll make a lot of clicking sounds like this through their phonic lips in their throat, and these clicks travel through the water and they bounce off an object and return to them as an echo. And the sperm whale and all other echolocating marine mammals can interpret this returning echo to understand an awful lot about an object's shape, its size, its direction, and its texture. So they're using this to build up a 3D map of their underwater world. And if you think about it, they need this really to be able to swim around when it's dark, because at a depth of 50 meters or more, 40 meters, it's going to be dark. So having the ability to do this, to swim around, not hit into things, and to hunt is a fantastic adaptation. And they are the loudest animal on the planet. And it's said that if a scuba diver is clicked at by a sperm whale, it's like getting kicked in the chest by a horse. And one of my friends who works out in the Azores with the sperm whales there was out on his boat one day and went diving with blue sharks. And when he came back to the surface and a young sperm whale came over to him, which is quite unusual actually. They're not like the grey whales. Sperm whales don't typically come over to people. But this young one was quite curious and it got so close. My friend had to get his hand and actually push its nose and push it away. And he said he lost a feeling in his hand for 2 weeks because of the echolocation that was going through it. Absolutely phenomenal. They're fantastic animals and really great if we can see them. So we'll continue exploring on land. You can actually see some frigate birds flying up in the top corner here over the cliffs. So we'll do some really lovely land walks, and just the geology of this area I think is absolutely stunning. Just all of the sedimentary layers and layer upon layer upon layer of sand and silt is really interesting, great for photography as well. So lots really nice to go around in the small boats and explore this wonderful desert habitat and its inhabitants. So we'll look for such birds as roadrunner. This is a huge ground-dwelling cuckoo. It's surprisingly iridescent, actually, in good light, with purple and green tones on the wings and the tail, usually seen on the ground in dry desert habitat, with patches of patches of thick vegetation. Sometimes perches on fences or exposed rocks, especially if it's singing. And they'll run quite swiftly after large insects, lizards, and other prey items. So for anyone interested in geology, this is a fascinating place to visit as we can look at the layers of sediment on these rocks, and it is just teeming with shell fossils, just hundreds and hundreds of thousands years old. Absolutely phenomenal. And exploring, we actually found this fossilized turtle when we were on shore. This is at Santa Catalina. Really enjoyable and just a privilege to be able to see it. So that's our boat in the background there, and the lovely apricot colour from all of the shells built up in the sand here with this fossilized turtle in the foreground. And birding in this desert habitat can really reveal some beauties. You can sometimes have to put in a bit of work to find things, but it's really rewarding when we do find things. So cactus wren, these are beautiful animals. They're quite large actually, and make beautifully woven nests that just hang from branches where they'll reverse in and lay their egg. And this is the scarce Xantu's hummingbird. This is an endemic. It only occurs on the Baja Peninsula. And the males have a black and orange bill with a black face mask and a white eyebrow. This was taken, this was feeding on red hot poker flowers taken by one of our clients. Another photo of it here. Really lovely bird. And we have an opportunity to snorkel as well a couple of times. And it's quite cold. It's not like the tropics. It's a refreshing snorkel, but it's still nice to go and see what's about. You can see nice things like this pufferfish here. Really lovely and colourful. And we can also go snorkeling with sea lions. Now, we go to a sea lion colony, and these sea lions have absolutely no sense of personal space, because they'll come right up to you. You think you've got nothing around you, and 2 seconds later, you've got a face full of whiskers, and two big black eyes staring at you, wanting to know what you're doing. They're very playful, very inquisitive, and really relaxed. You can see they're just hanging in the water. They're just scratching themselves, and they'll come along and have a little investigate. Those two are touching mouth to mouth. I think that's actually a mother and a calf there, and a mother and a pup, and blowing bubbles at each other. They love doing things like that. It's all just communication, playing games, and interacting with one another. And they're very gentle and quite boisterous. That's one that just came up and nudged me, so I turned around. I got completely surrounded by them. And ones that don't want to be with you just don't swim over to you, quite simply. I tend to just stay in one spot. And this photo was taken by a friend and colleague of mine while he was leading the trip a few years ago. He came across these sea lions, and it looked like they were playing with a football. And he wondered, where on earth have they got a football from? Until he realised it was actually a guinea fowl pufferfish. And you can see it looks extremely disgruntled here. So here's its mouth, and one eye there, one eye there. So this is its face. And you've got its two little fins here, and it inflated itself to try and look as ferocious as possible. And these sea lions knew exactly what they were doing, but they were just playing with it, having a great old game. So really quite entertaining, mischievous. And we can head on shore again for more walks and go through more mangroves to explore. And the shore walks can reveal some really other lovely desert species that we haven't seen yet, such as northern cardinals. Now, this is a striking and familiar backyard bird throughout most of North America. It also occurs in southwestern US and fairly extensively in Mexico. It'll fairly frequently visit bird feeders. And what a bird. I mean, just imagine having that in your garden. Fabulous. Scott's orioles as well. Hooded orioles. Beautiful, really lovely photographic opportunities. Costa's hummingbird. This photograph was taken by a client, Dave Broughton. And loggerhead turtles. You can see quite a few of them. And then we head to the southern tip of Baja. And this particular spot is where all of the humpback whales are breeding. And there's a spot called Gorda Banks. And there's loads of humpbacks leaping around and doing a lot of what we call surface behavior. So they're slapping their fins, their tail fins, their pectoral fins, they're head banging. And you've got huge males basically showing off to the females and competing with other males. And you see lots of breaches, and it's really enjoyable to watch. You never get a photograph on the first breach. It'll always be the third or fourth breach when you're ready and you've managed to get yourself in position. And this leads me to a question that I'm very often asked by my guests on my cruises is, why do whales breach? Well, breaching is just one of the behaviors that cetaceans do at the surface. I've just listed some of the others. We don't know for sure why they do it, but we have some very plausible theories which are widely accepted. And the reasons we believe really depend on context. So sound travels very effectively through water. So they can communicate to other pod members. If they've become spread out, you can make a huge loud bang and say, this is where I am. It also creates a huge cloud of bubbles, which can be echolocated on. Which wouldn't particularly work for a humpback, though, because they don't use echolocation. So that might work for another whale, like a sperm whale, which do echolocate. But communication certainly, just to signal to other pod members. But you don't really want to get in the way of a whale when it's showing off, because they can really get quite close. So it can be courtship if it's breeding season and they're showing off. They might not realize how close they are to the boat. They've gone deep down and then they're shooting up to the surface. and they're so entranced in showing off and doing a good, impressive jump, they don't realize boats are next to them. So you do need to be mindful of it. This isn't our boat, I'll just say that. Um, and also, it could be, and this is very plausible, I think extremely likely, almost certain, that it's to remove parasites. Now, parasites can really weigh a whale down. A whale can have around 500 kilos of parasites on their body, and this adds to drag, of course, and it can be exhausting. This means they need more energy to move through the water. And you can see the parasites here. If I just go back to this photograph I showed earlier, on a grey whale, we've got barnacles and whale lice. So if they leap up out of the water and crash back down, they're able to dislodge them and free themselves of it a little bit. And another question I'm often asked is, well, dolphins, they're moving around in the water so fast and so quickly. How on earth are they managing to breathe? Well, they're mammals, so they do need to breathe air. And you've probably heard of decompression sickness or the bends. And this is when divers ascend too quickly from deep waters and dissolved nitrogen in the blood forms bubbles, which can cause acute pain in the muscles, paralysis, and in some cases, even death. It's a very big risk for deep water human divers, but not for dolphins. So when diving, dolphins reduce their request for oxygen. Their heartbeat slows, and the amount of blood that gets pumped around their body decreases. And during a deep dive, only the important organs such as the heart and the brain get the oxygen-rich blood flowing through them. And they'll breathe through this blowhole. It's actually an adapted nostril, which sits on the top of their heads. And when a dolphin breathes, the air goes straight into their lungs. So exhaling, inhaling rarely takes more than a fraction of a second. And if you look at this, I think it's just amazing to watch. I love this photo because it shows that to optimize inhalation time at the surface, it's already exhaling just before it's broken the surface. And dolphins are voluntary breathers, so this means they must take a conscious decision to inhale air. We, as humans, are involuntary breathers. We continue to breathe even if we're unconscious. And that leads to the next question I'm usually asked, well, is if dolphins have to think about breathing, then how do dolphins sleep? Well, quite simply, if whales and dolphins went to sleep the same way that we did, they would certainly drown. Dolphins don't completely shut down and go into sleep. Their brain must always be active enough to initiate breathing. And this is quite an interesting diagram here. This is actually an electroencephalograph, which shows the two hemispheres of a dolphin brain. And these are captive dolphins that have been monitored while they're sleeping. And it shows one side of the dolphin's brain being awake while the other is in a deep sleep. So you've got the hemispheres of the brain here, left and right, and we've got regions 1, 2, and 3, which are corresponded here. So you've got this, nice and awake, la la la. And then 4, 5, and 6. So the other hemisphere is asleep. And then it swaps over. And what is fascinating in this unihemispheric sleep is that the eye of the opposing sleep half that is asleep will be closed, and this is because the optic nerve crosses over the brain to the other side. So if you see dolphins and one of the dolphins has got its eye closed, the other half of its brain will be asleep. And it's thought that this has evolved due to the dolphin's need to breathe at the surface, but it might also be necessary for protection against predators. If your pod is all asleep, but half of you have got your left eye open and the other half have got your right eye open, then you're fairly well covered. So this could be how they've evolved their sleep and how to live in such an environment when they still need to breathe air. And as we round the Baja Peninsula, we come into the Sea of Cortez, and the species that we're really hoping to see here is the blue whale. This is the largest animal in the world, and they can easily be detected from a great distance because they have an enormous 10-meter or so blow. Their lung capacity is about 5,000 liters. So if you've got a lung capacity that big, you can shoot a lot of this is actually just surface water that sits on the rostrum, but when they're breathing out so hard with so much force and air, then it sends a lot of the surface water into the air as spray. And the heart of a blue whale, just the heart, is the size of a small car. And the tongue can weigh up to 4 tons, which is the same as an African elephant. And the arteries are so wide that a small child could swim through them, which is quite phenomenal. But just to so you can appreciate how large these animals are. Now, everyone usually knows the size of a blue whale. Everyone says it can get up to 33 meters. Well, the length can be a little bit misleading. It's similar to that 33 meters is the maximum length that has ever been recorded of a blue whale. So it's a bit more like if you were to say, oh, humans can get up to 9 feet because that's the Guinness World Record for how high a human has grown. They're more typically about 27 meters in length, and they may well be able to reach larger, longer lengths, but they quite frankly haven't had enough time to recover from whaling yet. So hopefully we will see that in the future. Now, the Latin name for a blue whale is Balanoptera musculus. Balanoptera meaning winged whale. Musculus means muscle in French, but it also means mouse in English. It has a double meaning. They were named in 1758, and it's thought that Carl Linnaeus, who named the species, had known the double meaning and used it as a little bit of irony, naming the largest animal in the world after one of the smallest, and showing that, even in the 1700s, they had a sense of humour. Now, under bright light, blue whales appear bluish, which is why they get their names, but they usually appear grey actually when they break the surface, which can cause them to be mistaken with other baleen whales. But the distinguishing feature really is the small dorsal fin and this huge U-shaped head and the mottled skin. And see this wonderful skin mottling that they have there, and a very small dorsal fin as well. It's so small. If I go back to the previous slide, you can see how small it is there. It's dorsal fins have evolved for balance so that they can keep themselves balanced in the water. Quite simply, blue whales are so large, it doesn't make a difference. They don't need it now, so it's just become redundant. And we were amazed to see a blue whale really close to the boat, which was fabulous. And then we had another one on the horizon, and then another one, and another one. And we ended up with 15 blue whales in the waters around us when I was there a couple of years ago, which was just absolutely fabulous. Here's a better photograph of the mottling of the skin there. That's a really good diagnostic feature. And other species that we may see when we're in the Sea of Cortez, ocean sunfish. Now, their scientific name is mola mola, which people also call them. Now, mola is a grinding stone, a millstone. If you think of teeth, your molars. So the name refers to the fish's round, grey, and rough appearance, which is similar to that of a millstone. And you sometimes get terns landing on them, and they'll let parasites. They'll pick parasites off them. The sunfish will let the terns kind of give them a little clean as they do that. So that's often why they come to the surface. Spine-tailed mobula rays, also known as giant devil rays, can be seen as well in quite large numbers. They're circumtropical, widely diffused in all oceans and adjacent seas, often extending their range into warm, temperate latitude, but we can have really significant numbers of them. And what's quite amusing is quite often one will just randomly leap out of the water and land with a splat. And then it sets off this chain reaction, and you get another one leaping up out of the water and splatting, another one coming and splatting. And we counted a handful, another handful, another handful, and we had them like this around our boat on every side of the boat. And we realized we had them actually as far as the eye could see. And we traveled really slowly, about 4 knots, as we were passing them at this density for an hour, which was incredible. And the skipper said he had them a mile in every direction on his sonar, and the crew had never seen anything like it. So I didn't see this last year, but I saw this a couple of years ago when I was there, which was just phenomenal. So really special moments. We never know what's going to pop up and surprise us when we're in this fantastic part of the world. And from here, we sail off into the sunset and depart from Cabo San Lucas, the southern tip of the peninsula, the following morning. And as is tradition on Naturetrek Roadshows, I'll leave it here on a nice sunset. But if any of you would like to join us, we'd be delighted to have you on board. I'm actually heading out there in a few weeks' time on the 7th of March. and we do still have a few spaces available. I'd love to see you on board. So please do come along. Alternatively, we've got dates for 2027 as well. So thank you so much for listening. And if you do have any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them now, as will George, who's the operations manager for the tour. And I also just hope you've had a pleasant evening of armchair travel. So thank you very much, everyone, and I'll happily take some questions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was absolutely fascinating. I never get tired of hearing about Baja, California. It's just such a wonderful destination. So yeah, we'll have a few minutes now for any questions if anybody has any. There's a Q&A button in the Zoom as well as the webinar chat button as well. So please ask away.
Let's see if we've got any questions.
Wonderful. So I can see one here. Do you have to have snorkeled before to be allowed to do so? I would recommend having a little bit of snorkeling experience, just purely just to be used to wearing a mask and fins and a snorkel itself, and just to be able to be a decent enough swimmer. They do have life jackets on board if you'd rather just simply float in the water. But for the whale shark and sea lion snorkeling opportunities, I would definitely recommend having some prior experience, just because it can be quite active when you're in the water.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, if you wanted to snorkel and just do some gentle snorkeling, then the other snorkel opportunities, there are gentle snorkel opportunities which would be available to you, but the whale shark and sea lions probably wouldn't be as suitable. You might not feel as comfortable. The crew like people to swim around the boat once as a little test to make sure that you're happy and confident in the water before going swimming with the whale sharks, just for the whale sharks. But for just pottering around some of the little bays, and you can really make up your mind on the day. You know, if you just if you've got room just to put some fins in your bag, and some leggings and a loose top that you don't mind just swimming in, and have a snorkel with you. They do have some gear on the boat as well that you can also borrow, and then you can just make up your mind when you're there.
Brilliant.
Got another question. Are there direct flights from London? Yes, there are. They're BA flights, aren't they, George?
That is correct. Yeah, so it's direct BA flights from Heathrow into San Diego, and then we'll have a night in San Diego, as Sarah said, before boarding the boat the next day. And then on the return journey, it's a flight from Cabo back to San Diego to catch the return flight back to the UK.
And would you like to keep asking questions, George, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can ask them. So I've got one here, which is, Sarah, how often are blue whales seen on the tours?
I don't think they've ever been missed. I think
Yeah,
we've seen them on every trip. I've seen them on every trip I've been on, and I don't think we've ever missed them on a trip in the history of us running this trip, which has been probably 20 years or so. Woohoo.
you've maintained a 100% success rate so
Oh,
far.
touch wood, hang on. Right.
I've got a wooden desk in front of me, so I'm going to touch it now.
Yeah,
But we have got a 100% success rate. Obviously, with
touch my
wildlife
plant.
watching, there is no guarantees, but the joy of these trips is we put people in the best opportunity at the best times of year to
Yeah,
see the wildlife or to have a chance of seeing the wildlife. And
absolutely.
then the next one I can see is there Wi-Fi on board?
There is indeed. Yeah, if you like Wi-Fi, you can use it. Sometimes it can be a little bit temperamental, but it's absolutely fine for sending photos and things like that.
And then next one I can see is, what month was the trip that you've just shown?
That was in March. So we run this trip in February and March when the conditions are like that.
Brilliant. And then another one just about conditions as well. I've got one here saying, I've heard that dense sea fog was a problem of California. Is this just a seasonal issue, as all your photos show perfect weather?
I've never experienced fog on this trip. I've been to California on my own holiday and done a road trip along the coastline in July, and there was a lot of fog. Which was quite interesting going over the Golden Gate Bridge and not being able to see it. But on this cruise, I've never seen any photos actually that show fog, and I've never experienced it. So I think I can't imagine it happens at this time of year. It might be too warm. Yeah, it's
Brilliant.
quite warm. Yeah.
And the next one I can see is, are there any chances of seeing orca on this trip?
There is a chance. I haven't seen them, and they're not regularly seen. Um, you can see them if you, I mean, because orca are a transient, well, transient and resident, but you can get transient pods coming and going. So it would be an icing on the cake if we saw them, not an expectation. And I wouldn't book this trip to see orca. There are plenty of other trips which we could recommend for that. But if we did get them, that would be great.
Yeah, I would agree with what Sarah says. They are in the area, as they have been known to hunt on the grey whale calves as they are
Yeah.
leaving the lagoons. But on my trip myself, when I went on this trip a few years back, we didn't see them. I don't know how regularly they are seen, but I think they have been seen in the past.
Yeah.
Definitely not every trip.
Yeah. They are certainly in the area as a habitat, certainly, but not reliable, I would say.
And then another question here, which is single supplement. So for this trip, we do have one single cabin available per departure. And then that is available, I believe, at the moment for 1295. And then that includes the single room in the hotel in San Diego as well. If you're interested in 27 and potentially 2028, it's worth getting in touch with our office and we'll be able to give you some more information as well. And then another question for you, Sarah. Do you ever see bioluminescence?
Oh, yes, I actually haven't, but my colleague Tim, who has led this trip for years and years, has. And he's got an amazing photo of some dolphins coming alongside the boat at night, which, because they're swimming through the water and disturbing the bioluminescence, they're covered in this sort of psychedelic, weird disco color, which it looks like he's weirdly doctored the photo, but he hasn't. And this is the bioluminescence. So I haven't seen it personally myself. To be fair, I haven't really looked for it actually, but it is certainly there. There's chock-a-block full of plankton and varieties of different things like bioluminescence.
A great description there, chock-a-block full of plankton. On my trip, we were lucky enough to have some bioluminescence as we were passing
Oh, great.
at night. We had a few days of really, really calm seas, which is the perfect conditions for bioluminescence to kind of form on the water as the plankton remains undisturbed. And as the bow of the boat was cutting through the water, we could see it reflected off of the front. So yeah, really spectacular thing to see. Again, definitely not something that you can see on every trip, but worth keeping your eye out in the evening. And the crew will turn the lights off the deck as well if it is seen, just to kind of improve your chances of seeing it with the naked eye.
Yeah. We've got another question here. Which camera lens do you recommend? So I would recommend two, taking a telephoto lens and a wide angle, so a landscape lens. So I have a 100 to 500 zoom lens, and I really like that flexibility. I haven't got a fixed lens, just because there's so many changing situations where you've got wildlife close and you've got it far away. I also use a 1.4 converter on my 100 to 500, which I suppose effectively makes it a 700. So I really enjoyed taking that. I have a wide angle lens, which is a 24 to 105. So that's nice for actually taking out in the boat to go and see the whales, because a zoom lens alone, yeah, you're not always going to get the variety of shots that you might want. So it's nice to be able to change lenses and also just to take photographs of the landscapes as well. And as a third option, it seems very privileged having all of these cameras. I just have my phone, my iPhone, my smartphone is great. It's really high quality, and sometimes I just leave the camera in the bag and I'm taking photos. Oh, I have a GoPro as well for taking the underwater shots, which is great fun. You can spend as much money as you want on cameras, can't you? You can just get quite lost and run away with it all. So if you've got any more specific camera questions, if that hasn't helped, if there's one thing in particular that you're wanting to photograph, Amanda, then do just drop me an email or give me a ring in the office, and happy to chat to you, or pop something in the chat now and I can give a more detailed answer.
Brilliant. Yeah, would second what Sarah said there as well. When I went on this trip, I took a 70 to 300 telephoto lens, and I found that gave me a nice amount of reach for everything but bird photography. So that's for the whales. I found that was absolutely perfect. For anything a bit further away, obviously it was a bit more challenging. But for me, I found it more than perfect for the trip and how close you're getting to some of the wildlife. And I've got a question here from Derek saying, I'd like to book but don't want to pay all up front. How do I do that? And this is for March 2027. So when we're doing our bookings for our holidays, we accept a 20% deposit at the point of booking. And then the final balance is due around 70 days or 10 weeks before departure for 2027. And then another question, how useful is a telescope?
Unless you were a really keen birder, I would leave the scope at home. I don't like to say to anyone, don't take a scope because I feel a bit mean if they're really keen on seeing something. But there's a couple of things here. One, they're useless on boats, and they will be on this boat because, we're moving around and the water can be a little bit bouncy. So you'd only want it for the shore visits. The second reason being the cabins are very small and there's not a huge amount of space to store your equipment. So for this trip, I would not advise taking a scope. And I'm very sorry if you see something that you really like and you wish you had your scope for it. But I think all in all, you would be happier without not having it, because there's limited cabin space, and you'll have to carry it around onshore. But it is down to personal preference. Some people do not mind carrying them at all and just say, don't care, I'll sleep with it on my bed. And if that's you, Nick, then go for it. Bring it if you want. But I don't take one, and I'm the guide, put it that way.
Brilliant. So I'll give one last opportunity for anyone to ask any questions. I've got one more here, which is, do the cabins come with their own bathrooms? No, they do not. It is shared bathrooms for the trip. And then we have 4 toilets and 2 showers on the back of the boat, and there are sinks in the cabins as well.
Yeah. Let's do the crew allow. I'm just reading this question from Amanda. If there's a spare cabin, do the crew allow kayak clients to use it as a store space? I don't think that's ever happened. I'm not sure. It may be that if there is a spare cabin, they might be able to put a bag or so in there. But that would very much depend on the crew arrangements because there isn't usually a spare cabin. If there is, then some of the crew might move into it, but we might be able to do something. But I wouldn't be hugely optimistic. I would say pack light. I just stuff all of my clothes onto a shelf and just get up every morning, grab and go. And I'm so excited by what we're seeing for the day. I run into my cabin to grab a different camera lens and run back out again, and that's pretty much me for the day. What about binoculars? Oh, hi, Dave. Binoculars. Oh, yes, you want bins. So I've got 8x32s, which are perfectly fine, or 10x32s, 8x42s, whatever, is personal preference for people. But whatever you use for your birding binoculars or wildlife watching binoculars at home will be perfectly adequate for this trip. And it's always best to take what you're used to as well. Is seasickness a problem? Yeah, it can be. And I would say for the first 3 days of going down the peninsula, the water can be a bit choppy. That's the only time I've experienced it being choppy. The rest of it is really fairly calm. But unless you were to encounter unexpected, unusual weather. But they've got, I think they have seasickness tablets on the boat, but I would just take seasickness tablets. It's up to you to decide, if you choose to go on the trip and then you're comfortable enough in yourself that you're not going to worry too much about seasickness tablets. I mean, I can feel a bit squiffy sometimes, and I just take tablets and just forget about it, and stay outside. And it's just for those first sort of 3 days. And quite a lot of people actually don't notice anything at all and just sit inside reading, while we're sort of moving around a little bit like that. But I prefer to be outside and just looking for wildlife and things.
Brilliant. So we'll just do the last couple of questions now as well. So I've got one here, which is, if the whale shark part is not possible, as you mentioned, what is the alternative schedule?
Yes, so that did happen to me last year actually when we went, and there weren't any whale sharks in the lagoon. They didn't get my email, the whale sharks. They didn't turn up, the rascals. So we actually there isn't an alternative set activity. We just carry on sailing, but it means that we've got more time to be spotting whales instead. And we went out and actually had a lovely encounter with some humpbacks, which was really nice. So that's what we do.
Brilliant. I'm going to answer these last two very quickly as I'm aware that we're running quite over now. So, generally, what is the food served on the boat?
Oh, it's
Sarah, do you want to do your
fantastic.
one?
I have to say, the food. I should have done I could do a whole presentation on the food. And I'm being very honest here, it is the best food I've had on any Naturetrek trip. And I've been to Antarctica, the Arctic, all of the cruises, and there's a new chef on board. And I'm really hoping that he'll be on board when I go in 2 weeks. I'm sure he will because here the chef and the skipper actually own the boat, so they run the business together. And he's a Michelin star trained chef. Used to have his own restaurant, and he's now on board the boat, and it is just fantastic, absolutely phenomenal, really, really good. Lots of lovely fresh cuisine and very, very tasty. And they can cater for a variety of dietary requirements as well.
Brilliant. And then the last
Um,
question here, I'll just answer quickly, which is, do you think Naturetrek would give a price for flights on return only, as we were thinking of going out a week prior? Yeah, that can definitely be arranged. So what we can do is we can arrange, when we arrange our flights for these trips, we arrange them on a semi-flexible basis. So if you wanted to go out a week earlier, just let us know your departure date. We can have a look at the availability and get those arranged for you. If there is a difference in fare, we'll let you know. So just send us an email or give us a call, and we'll be more than happy to look into that for you. Brilliant. I think that is everything. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. It's been absolutely wonderful. And a big thank you as well to Sarah for talking us through the wonders of the wildlife of Baja, California. It's been spectacular to hear it. And I've really, really enjoyed it. And I hope you guys all have as well. And if you have any questions about the holiday, you can always give our office a call. Our phone number is 01962 733 051 or email info@naturetrek.co.uk, and we'll be very happy to help you out. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone.
You're very welcome. Thank you everyone for joining. And thank you all so much for the lovely comments. Really lovely to see. Lots of smiles there. Thanks, Diane. All right, folks. Well, we'll see you at the next one, hopefully, which is next week, isn't it, George?
It is, yes, I believe it is on the Alps, I believe, or Alpine Botany,
Yeah,
hosted by our good colleague Kerry Porteous, and she'll be very happy to talk you all the way through those next week.
lovely. All right, folks. Well, have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.